Hey guys, I'm Rodney.
And I'm Jake with RodneyandJake.com. Today we partnered with Clay Imports to build a Breezeblock wall.
Breezeblocks are super versatile and can be used in a lot of different applications. In our design, we're creating a freestanding Breezeblock wall to give us a little bit of privacy and interest to our new stock tank pool space. It's going to be about 8 foot tall, which is really the max that you want to do a freestanding Breezeblock wall. In this design, we're going to take you through the step-by-step process on how we created this wall. But step one is to make sure that you've got a good, solid footing and foundation to start with. All right, so today we're going to start building our Breezeblock wall. We've given the foundations 48 hours to dry, so we know that they are going to be dry thoroughly inside and out. The footers we've created are going to be 16 inches wide by 16 inches deep. And the design that we're going to do is going to be an 8 by 8 inch cinder block column on either side with the Breezeblock in the center. But in order to get the right height that we want, we're going to have a row of cinder blocks across the base on top of our footer. We're then going to use a 2-inch thick concrete cap on those cinder blocks so that there's not any exposed holes. And then we're going to build the Breezeblock on top of that. What that's going to do is allow us a solid portion here under the decking, and then the Breezeblocks will start on top of that. So we're not wasting any of the pretty product itself. Now, the foundation was poured or formed up, and as you can see, it is sticking out of the ground on this side because our property does have a significant grade down to the creek, but it is in line with our first footer, which is over by the outdoor kitchen. And so these guys are going to be the same height, which is going to be really important for us so that the design matches across both sides. And in our concrete columns on either side, we're going to be using the rebar, which is going to help tie it to the foundation. So that way, as we're building our columns, because this wall is a freestanding wall, this rebar is going to be what helps tie it into the foundation. Now, we've gone with a pink rebar because it's prettier. Just kidding. It's fiberglass. It's lightweight. It's a semi-newer product. I've never actually used it, but what's been really great about it so far is how lightweight it is. When you're working with the rebar into your foundation or your footer like we are, and you want it to tie into your wall, it is really easy, or it's a lot easier if you can place these while your footer is still a little bit wet. You don't want it to be so wet that the rebar will just tip over. Like you can see, these guys are freestanding. So we did wait about 4 to 5 hours before we kind of slid them down and into the footer itself. And that's what's gonna help kind of anchor and solidify it to the foundation as one solid piece. And then of course we'll use mortar in between the blocks. For step 2, we'll start marking our footer. And you will suggest having a brush to clean off your concrete, a pencil for good marking, tape measure, square, and of course your materials. In our case, the Breezeblock and the 8 by 8 cinder block. We want to make sure that we're starting with a clean and level surface. We don't want any debris on our footer or foundation to make sure that our blocks adhere properly to our foundation. Now that our surface is nice and clean and free of any loose debris, we want to mark out where our blocks are going to go. In our case, we've used a cinder block base, and so we want to center these Breezeblocks on our concrete caps here. You could move this to the front or the back of this particular cap, but in our case, we're wanting to go center with this. Our style is about 2 1/4 inches thick, and our cap is 7 1/2 inches thick. So with quick math, we're going to do 2 3/8 inch in on either side to ensure that our Breezeblock's in line. So what I'm going to do first is mark 2 3/8 on one side. I'll mark 2 3/8 on our other side. And what that's going to do is give us a guide to ensure that when we place our blocks in the center here, that we've got a guide to keep us in line and square. So for step 2 is to get everything marked out once we've found center, and that'll help us determine our spacing for our 8 by 8 columns that'll sit on either end of our wall to hold our wall nice and secure, as well as help us understand the spacing for each of our Breezeblock with our mortar lines.
Step 3 is to start bonding and stacking the blocks.
We are using the liquid adhesive method here, which is going to bond the bricks together as well as to our columns. And then we're going to reinforce our columns with rebar as well as fill them solid with concrete as we build up. And that's going to give us a nice heavy anchor to frame our wall on either side. But we have found that every few rows of Breezeblock, it's good to pause and get everything cleaned up. That adhesive does kind of ooze out as you work, of course. So doing a little bit of cleanup along the way is going to make the final step a lot easier. we've decided that because you can use these in two different angles, upright like we've done, and upside down, when they come together, it's gonna make one row that's got a full circle in it. So we're gonna do 1/3 of the way up, and then at 2/3 we'll do another row like the circle, just to kind of break up the wall, make it a little bit more interesting. But we'll see how well it works. We're hoping it's more interesting. How's that? What's that on?
So light.
Hand me a brick. I used the DeWalt 3-inch cutoff with this super awesome masonry blade on it. It's like a zigzag of teeth even. But I've marked them out. I remarked the tops so that we know, because it's not perfectly square on here on the block itself. So I've cut it, but the 3-inch cuts all tool thing only cuts but so deep. So now I think I'm gonna have to use like a hammer and a chisel and break it out. As long as our sides don't break, we're good. It doesn't need to be beautiful on the inside because this is part of the columns that get filled with concrete. I mean, it's only cut about halfway.
Crack?
Yeah.
So that didn't work, so what are we doing?
We're trying again.
So which side of this should I expand? This side?
Try to go just to the inside left first.
Alright, 3.25.
What do you got? Yeah, seems like
All right, so on our brick wall project, we are using 16-inch cinder blocks as well as 8-inch cinder blocks. And to sort of make it look really finished, we're making sure that on the tops of the wall, we're adding these caps. We bought a bunch of 16-inch caps, but we did not buy any 8-inch caps. So we're going to have to make some 8-inch caps of our own from the 16-inch. For this project, you're going to need a Sharpie, a measuring tape, a square. We are using the DeWalt 3-inch cutoff tool, and also you are going to need a mask because it's going to be dusty and gross. Protect your lungs. To be exact as possible, we're going to make sure we have the exact measurement of the block first. These are coming in at 15.5. And so to get that halfway point, doing quick math, we're at 7 3/4. Using your square and the measuring tape, you're going to find 7 3/4. Make sure you're nice and square on the block, and then use your marker to mark that line. I then sort of cheated on the sides and used the square to make sure that the vertical lines on the side lined up exactly with the ones on the face. But then on the other side, I made sure to do the measurements as well and confirm that that lined up with my 2 lines on each side, just to make sure I had a consistent measurement across the entire block. You can try freehanding it, but sometimes this guy gets away from you a little bit and it's very powerful and we don't want to mess up your bricks. So for best results, let's use our square. Make sure that our blade is lined up on the line, that our guide notch is on the line as well. And we're going to confirm that the edge of this plate lines up with our square. We'll then make our cut following the guide as much as possible. Flip the brick around because we only want to cut in one direction with this blade. Make sure that we're still lined up with the cut when we make our first incision and make our remaining cut. We then flip the brick over, repeat the process on the other side. Then to separate our 2 bricks, all you should have to do is drop it from 1 or 2 feet and the 2 sides should separate. And that leaves us with a 16-inch cap and a 8-inch cap. So here we've already installed the 16-inch caps and we have our first 8-inch that needs to go in. It does create sort of a rough edge where the blade doesn't go all the way through. So we're going to make sure that we put that on the inside so that all the clean edges are on the outside. This is my lovely assistant. This is his first day and he's doing great.
So we had a few breeze blocks left over from the large wall, so what we're thinking is that we're going to use them in this space here to kind of anchor both sides of the outdoor kitchen. And what that's going to do for us is give us kind of an anchor wall. We've always had plants here. When we originally built the kitchen, we thought we wanted this a little more open, but how we've used it has kind of proven that we're always going to end up with plants here. It'll also offer a nice separation of space because this is the main entrance coming in and out of the house, and of course it'll mimic the wall on the other side. But the space is just too tight where the bricks are going to overlap a little bit, and we do want to keep them in a flat line. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark this post on the inside and then use the router to create a small groove, about a 1/4 of an inch deep, to go all the way up, or the height that we're going to do the block. So it kind of sits in there in like a little channel, and that'll also offer a little additional stability for the wall. I'm going to have to build a guide for the router in order to make this groove, because I don't have a track for my router, and it's not going to be the prettiest guide, but it is going to work, and it's going to do what we need it to do, and that's really all that matters. Let's see how this lines up. And then thinking that this guy is going to go in.
Watch your thumb. Do you want me to hold it?
Yeah, so this should give me a guide to scoop right along. Because this is centered, it should, in theory, line up on both sides. Alright, so now I'm going to just trim this excess off. And then I will have to, so this is why this is not a good thingamajig template. You'll notice it's covering my 2 screws over here. But I'm sure I'll get it off somehow, someday, at one point. But this is now glued to this board, and I put 2 nails in just to let it harden. I'm gonna trim this off, but all this is really doing is just giving me a straight edge, and then I'll take this off to finish out the center line, but it'll at least give me the guide for cutting out the straight lines on either side, evenly. Yeah, I'm setting the depth, so I just use the blocks to measure the distance, and it looks like it's gonna be a little over 1/2 inch, but I think I'm gonna have to make multiple passes at this, just less stress on the blade. So I'm gonna kind of cut it in half, but yeah, less stress on the blade and the battery and all that. So here goes nothing. Let's see if this works.
You just made another jig.
No.
Or modified the jig.
Yeah, I just added the support. Yeah, so though we do lose a little bit of the design with only routering out one side of these instead of doing a little bit on both, I would rather that, because the deeper channel is going to just offer a little bit more stability, and we are going to use the same liquid adhesive approach that we used on those guys, and then we'll do a little bit of mortar and joint work once everything is fully hardened.
Go ahead and put the brick there and turn it on its side so the water can flow through the holes. We don't have a dam.
I'm thinking it's still going to hold stuff back or no?
What?
Is it gonna still hold stuff back, you think, or no?
It's gonna hold the grass from running away.
I like how sometimes we're on the fence about an idea, but when like the project starts, it just kind of happens. Just all the things keep going. We're like, remember this was an idea once, we're just gonna do it now. And I'm hoping I remember correctly that the wall, that these actually get wider at the top and not thinner. Because that would be more. A couple of days ago, we did try a little sample area here just to see how the paint coverage would look on the brick, if we could still see the texture and the seam work, and of course how it would look with the color up against the Breezeblock. Here it goes!
And this is the final product.
With the Breezeblock, because the terracotta is raw, you can go through and seal it. It's also recommended to seal it prior to installation because it'll be a lot easier to clean as you go. But in our particular case, we wanted to leave it the raw material, but there's a chance we might seal it in the future. It is definitely a helpful step.
If you like this project, make sure to check out clayimports.com with their range of Breezeblocks and other handmade clay products.
We want to thank you guys for watching, and if you guys have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comments below.
If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the little bell icon to be notified next time we post another video. Also, make sure you check out our website where we have blogs and merch, as well as our other social media profiles on Instagram and TikTok at Rodney and Jake.
And as always, we want to give a huge shout out to all of our members. If you're not already a member and you're interested in joining, definitely click the link in the description below. Our members get things like behind the scenes footage, as well as early access to some of our videos.
Until next week, we'll see you next time.